joining us now. Janie.
Yep, hi.
Lombardi. So Allegheny College, we're here at the college here today. So can you give us a little history of how'd you get here and you know your interest in all the science and everything?
I got to Allegheny because I grew up in Meadville and my parents worked at Allegheny and I went through the Meadville system, and my wife also was class of 1989 at Meadville High School. And so when the opportunity to come back and work at Allegheny arose in 2006, I came back and I've been a professor of physics here since then. And so my specialty is astrophysics. We do computer simulations of colliding stars in our lab.
Okay. Well, that's the big issue today is there's a solar eclipse coming up. So can you talk about that for a second? This hasn't happened for a long time.
No, that's right. That's right. Allegheny was founded in 1815, and Meadville, Pennsylvania was founded in 1788. And since Meadville was founded, there have been 87 partial eclipses when the moon is partially covered by the moon, and 3 annular eclipses where the moon has a ring of the sun around it, but there's only been 1 total solar eclipse, and that was back in 1806.
Oh, wow.
And so it's a rare event to have a total solar eclipse at any one particular place on the Earth.
Now, when's the next one coming?
The next one for Crawford County will be in the year 2144.
Wow.
So I plan to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not sure if I'll still be around.
No.
Okay. All right. So how does that work? I mean, talk about the eclipse for a second. How does that work?
As we know, the Earth orbits around the sun once every year. And as it orbits, the moon orbits around the Earth once every month. And if things line up just right, then you can get the moon in front of the sun. Dwayne, I want you to hold the sun here.
Here's the sun, okay.
And this is the moon.
Okay.
All right? And so imagine you are the Earth, right? The idea is that the moon's going to be orbiting around you, and at certain points here, you might have the moon block out your view of the sun.
Wow. Okay.
And if it blocks it out completely, then that would be a total solar eclipse.
So that's a big deal. I mean, that's not going to happen all the time.
It's not going to happen all the time. A lot of people wonder why it doesn't happen every month, right? Because if indeed it only takes 1 month to go around, you'd think, oh, well, the moon should block the sun every month. But the reason it's not is because as it goes around, the moon has a tilt to its orbit.
Yeah.
It's at an angle by about 5 degrees with respect to the plane that the Earth orbits in. And so because of that, you only will have 2 eclipse seasons over the course of the year, in April and May approximately, and in October and November approximately.
Okay.
And then you can have it both be the moon both be between the sun and the Earth, as well as sort of at the right height to block that light from the sun.
Now, I was having an interview. I was actually being interviewed here a couple of weeks ago, and the person interviewing me does the morning show on Armstrong and does the radio thing too. It's called the Morning Drill, I think it's called. And he interviews me usually once or twice a year or whatever about things we're doing for the outdoor show.
Yeah.
And he said, "What's going to happen when it gets dark in the middle of the day? Are deer going to be all over the road?" So what do you think is going to happen?
The animals, it's going to be crazy. Hopefully it'll be clear that day. If it's cloudy, it won't be as dramatic. If it's cloudy, and there's about a 2/3 chance that it will be, then it'll get dark as night, and the cows will start coming back from the pasture, the birds will start twittering, the animals will start acting a little strange, right? You'll feel a temperature drop. This is in Meadville, 3:16 p.m. until 3:19 p.m. So this totality would last for about 3 minutes. So that'll be strange. Now, if the skies are clear, it's going to be even more dramatic, because what you'll be able to see is the night sky. You'll be able to see the corona of the sun poking out from it. This is the atmosphere of the sun, and it will be several suns wide. You'll be able to see 15 degrees down and to the right from the sun, the planet Venus. You'll be able to see 30 degrees up and to the left from the sun, the planet Jupiter.
Oh, wow. Okay.
If you have good views of the southern horizon, you'll be able to see Saturn and Mars to the southwest. You'll see some stars like Rigel over to the east. Now, what's going to happen is that the partial eclipse phase starts at around 2 o'clock.
Okay.
And that's when the moon will just start to cover the sun a little bit. And you won't see anything immediately strange unless you have ways to view it, like solar eclipse viewing glasses or pinhole projectors that you can view this with. And then that'll progress up until 3:16 p.m. and I'm using the times here for Meadville, Pennsylvania. And you can go online to, for example, eclipse2024.org and get down to the second at your latitude and longitude when these things will occur. But at approximately 3:16 p.m., that's when you will have totality begin. In the minute to 2 minutes leading up to totality, there's something that's fun to look for. They're called shadow bands. So the shadow that the moon casts down onto the Earth is about 110 miles wide by the time it reaches us here. And it does not have a sharp boundary from the light bending around the moon and from the interaction between the light and the atmosphere of the Earth. It kind of has dark and then bright and then dark and then bright bands at the edge of the shadow. And so in that 1 minute before totality, look down at the ground around you and see if you see these bands moving by very quickly. The whole shadow is moving at 2,000 plus miles per hour by the time it gets to us here in Pennsylvania. And so these little bands are going to be flittering by really quickly. And then at 3:16 p.m. when you got to be wearing your eclipse glasses if you're looking. If you're photographing, up until this point, you would need to have had a filter on your camera, or use a pinhole projector if you want to look at the sun up until this point. But at 3:16 p.m. when totality arises, there you had better take off your eclipse glasses, right? Then it's totally safe at that point to look at the scene. Right? And in fact, if you left your glasses on, you'd be missing the best part of the show.
Because it's going to be dark.
It's going to be dark
really
as night. Yeah. The last thing you'll see before that darkness are these so-called Bailey's beads. Because the moon is not perfectly round, you have mountains and valleys, right? The light will poke through those valleys and you'll see little beads. Depending on where you're exactly observing from, you may see a really super bright bead, and then it kind of looks like a diamond ring shape, right? And in other places, you can actually sometimes have double diamond rings, or like 2 diamonds on the edge of the ring. You'll also see that same features on the back end of totality, right? So after, in Meadville, 2 minutes and 39 seconds, totality will be over. You'll see Bailey's beads again. You can look for shadow bands again on the ground for the minute after totality. And then you kind of progress through the partial stage that lasts to approximately 4:30 that afternoon.
Let me go back to the question I asked you before. So I live just off of Limber Road, just up, just not
far from where I grew up.
Like about a mile from here. Yeah, not far from where you grew up. I was going downtown the other. Well, this was just before the time change thing, and 3 deer standing in the middle of the road, right at 7 o'clock when it was just 6:45. It was just starting to get dusk or whatever, and so I'm flashing my high beam at a car coming the other way, and he turns his high beams on. It didn't realize why I was flashing at him, because there's 3 deer standing in the road.
You're trying to help the guy.
I'm trying to warn him, And hopefully he didn't hit any of them, because I didn't see any dead deer laying along the side of the road there. So hopefully that worked out okay. But that's when they start moving. Is like right when it gets dark.
That's right. That's when you got to watch out for the deer.
I'm thinking that's going to happen again, right?
Hopefully it won't drive them too crazy and cause any accidents, but that it would be something to be concerned about, because the animals are going to start behaving in the same ways that they behave when evening starts to roll around. And probably right as totality begins, traffic will be rather low, because most people, I hope, will be out observing, but maybe there will be some people who aren't as impressed with this as you and me that are on the streets, and
maybe someone's running an errand or
and there's
whatever.
Going to be that's right.
So don't be don't be like just assuming this is just night. This isn't night. This is going to be a real active thing, and you may have that issue with wildlife on the.
And I know the Pennsylvania State Police and the local police are really emphasizing that you're going to need extra time that day to get places, because there are a lot of people, millions of people, that will come along this path of totality that's stretching from Mexico all the way up through Maine and into Canada and beyond. And so even here in Meadville, you should expect there to be heavier than normal traffic. Certainly along I-79, there's going to be a lot of traffic up into Erie. And so you'll want to leave yourself extra time to travel on that day. If you are going out to observe the event, you're going to want to leave early so that you can get where you want to be safely in plenty of time.
Now, I assume that I've been hearing on the Erie news that they're, like, every hotel room has been already locked up or whatever, and they're now at the fairgrounds. You can you can rent a space to put your camper out there, so you can be out there to see this thing happening or whatever. So I'm assuming that's going to happen all over the place. So there's going to be a ton of traffic. There's going to be lots of people around, and hopefully they're not going to be driving around right when it's right when it's hitting. Right. That they're going to be just stopping and looking with their glasses on, so they're they're protected, right? So
that's right.
Okay, so down the road, you said this is going to happen again in the 40s.
In 2144, I mean, you'll have
2144.
Yeah,
okay.
In 2044. A mere 20 years from now, there will be a total solar eclipse that will just kind of come down through Canada and stop in the middle northern portion of the United States.
Oh.
And then in 2045, there will be another total solar eclipse that passes across the United States, but we won't be in the band of totality for either of those.
Okay.
It wouldn't be until a century later, until 2144, that Crawford County would experience the next total solar eclipse.
Okay, so when you're thinking about this kind of thing, and it's like, I want to get out and look at that, whatever, go over again, what you want to do to be safe with that. So that you're not going to hurt yourself.
In fact, maybe you could hand me these glasses that are right over here so that we can make sure that we talk about that. So these are solar eclipse glasses, and you'll want to be wearing these if you're ever looking directly at the sun, any time where you can see any portion of the sun. So before, like if you go outside on a clear day, you'd have to wear these to look at the sun, right? Fortunately, there's the blink reflex that people have. So if you look at the sun, it's just natural to look away. But if you stared at the sun for too long, you're going to cause eye damage. Okay. These are going to block both the regular light that comes through, visible light, as well as the ultraviolet light. They're darker than 1,000 sunglasses. I mean, sunglasses don't cut it on that day. And you're going to want to make sure that if you have some of these, that it has the ISO 12312-2 safety certification on the side to make sure. And the way you use these is, you don't look at the sun, you look down, you put them on, and then you look up at the sun.
Okay.
And that'll protect you, right? As soon as Bailey's beads have gone away and its totality, then you can take these off. And then as soon as totality is over with and the partial phase starts up again, if you see that first glimpse of a Bailey bead, then you got to put these back on. Okay. Now, the other thing that you can do is you can build pinhole projectors. And these are so easy. You can do this in a matter of like 5 minutes or less.
Okay.
You just need aluminum foil, a pin, a box of some type, and it'd be nice to maybe have some white paper. Okay. And scissors. But like here's some that I've been making with fourth graders that have been visiting the college. What they did is we took a tube. It doesn't have to be a tube. It can be lots of other things, as I'll show you. But in this case, we took a tube. Okay. And we taped down some aluminum foil. You see, Dwayne, how there's a tiny little hole right there. Just use a safety pin, for example. And then down at the other end, you just have a white screen. I put a plastic cap on there, and I cut a little hole so that you can view. Now, this is not how you use it. If the sun's off in that direction, this is not like this. You're not using it like a telescope. What you would do is you would have the light from the sun come down through that little pinhole. then it's going to project an image of the sun down at the base there.
On the white thing you put in
down
the
that
bottom.
white thing there.
Okay.
That's why you cut a hole in the side of it so that you can look through the side and
Okay.
see it. And if you want to get this all lined up just right, what you do is you pay attention to the shadow that
okay.
your tube is casting. Because if you're holding it in a direction not towards the sun, then the shadow is going to be big. So you want to make the shadow as small as possible, so it's just, in this case, a little circle on the ground, and then you'll see an image of the sun pop right up in there at the base of the tube. Right? And so that's a nice, safe way to be able to view the eclipse. You can make these beforehand in practice. When you go out on a normal sunny day and do this, you're just going to see a little circular disk at the bottom because the sun's a circle in the sky. But then on the day of the eclipse, you do this, you'll see how you get a crescent sun.
Almost like getting carved,
Yes.
getting carved away.
It's
there.
getting carved away by the moon as it progresses towards the totality. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a tube, right? It can be a box. There's so many different ways you can make it. It doesn't really matter. Right there, you have aluminum foil. You poke a hole in it. Here, there's a little viewing thing on the side, and you could just do it the same way.
Same thing. You put white on the. You
can put white on the bottom because that makes it easiest to see.
Okay.
But you don't even need a tube or a box or anything. You could cut a hole in the bottom. It doesn't matter what it is, of a yogurt cup. The aluminum foil is kind of nice because it's thin and you could poke a hole in it, and then you could just hold a sheet of paper over here. It doesn't. And then that's your screen.
Okay.
And so there's lots of different ways you can do it. People have, just last example, people have these cereal boxes. They're readily available. Put aluminum foil. You can do it lots of ways. You could put aluminum foil right here. You could even cut a hole right here. And then you're looking in this direction, and the light's coming in that direction. And you see down to the base of the box.
I remember, what was it? I forget how long ago it was, but when I was working down at the hospital, then the eclipse came and we went out in front of the emergency room and we were doing exactly what you said. We had a little hole and then a white piece of paper, and like I said, you could see the thing real clearly.
I'm glad you said that too, because it reminds me that even if you don't want to bother with that stuff, you can use the leaves on trees, because the leaves on the trees will be flittering around, and there will be beams of light that are poking their way through it. So look at the ground around you. You could see hundreds of tiny little images of the sun from where those light beams are poking through the leaves of the tree. Or get your colander that you used to make spaghetti the night before and bring that outside. And again, you'll see hundreds of these little eclipse images. If you really want to have fun, buy yourself a disco ball with mirrors on it, and then the mirrors, each little tile mirror on the disco ball will reflect an image of the eclipse against the wall and the ground that's around you and that kind of thing.
Now this year, the winter hasn't been real significant like it's been in many other years or whatever, and the leaves are starting to pop out now, so the leaves are probably going to be out here.
I'm thinking there'll probably be some leaves, but it'll be a little bit early. We'll see. The other thing you can do, last thing, you can just put your fingers like this, right? And then you move your fingers around a little bit, you'll get little gaps between your fingers, and you can make holes that way, and then just project onto the ground what the
Okay. So for down the road, if I'm not being careful about this, I mean, I could injure my eyes, right? I mean, I could if I'm just looking.
Yeah, I mean, it's no more dangerous than any day. You never would want to look at the sun, right? But because people are intrigued with the partial eclipse, they have some kind of desire to want to watch it. That's a mistake if you start to stare at the sun, right? A quick glance at Bailey's beads, not advisable on the way into totality, because that will make your pupils real small, and then it may take a little while for your pupils to open up again. and so you wouldn't have as good a night vision during totality.
Okay.
But a quick glance at Bailey's beads on the way out of totality is not going to cause any permanent eye damage.
Okay.
But basically, once you see those Bailey beads, you're going to want to put those glasses back on, or be using some kind of safe way like the pinhole projectors
Okay.
to see it.
Okay. So what part of school does this thing go into? I mean, it's science, but which part of science is this part?
Well, it's touched upon a lot of important parts of astronomy and astrophysics through the years. I mean, in terms of scientific advancements that have been made in the field that I work in, it was back just over 100 years ago, 1915, 1917, we'll check it up, where Sir Arthur Eddington was able to confirm Einstein's theory of general relativity during an eclipse by photographing the stars. It's kind of neat that everything falls in gravity, even light itself.
Okay.
And so, although you wouldn't be able to, with our naked eyes, be able to tell this, scientists have, starting with Sir Arthur Eddington, photographed the stars beside the sun and shown that they're in a slightly different place than what you would have expected. And the reason for that is the light from those stars is bent by the gravity of the sun as it comes by it,
Okay.
in the exact way that Einstein's general theory of relativity predicted. So that was one of the first main tests that general relativity passed, and it really propelled Einstein to international fame.
How about that? Okay, so if this is something that's really interests me, I want to do all the things that you mentioned, and not go out and look, not look straight up at the sun, for 3 hours or whatever. That's going to be a bad thing, for my health. But on the other hand, this is something that's not going to happen again for quite a long time. So the way to go is to use this,
Yep.
is to use those things that you mentioned, and be safe.
That's right. And if you want to record this for yourself, a lot of people like to take photographs. You are going to need to have a filter, at least during the partial stages when you're taking those photographs.
So this is almost like a sunglasses type filter.
Yeah, it would be a similar kind of material that you put over either your cell phone camera lens or your camera lens or your movie. Could you even use that? I tried to use this, and it didn't work great, but I think the mistake I was making at the time was that I had left my camera on autofocus. Your cameras are not going to autofocus well. If you're going to try to take pictures with your cell phone, and all you have available is this, for sure, this will help a lot. And then you put it on like professional mode so that you can switch it to manual focus.
So you turn the autofocus off in a way, and then
there's some light balancing you can play with as well. The other thing, if you're trying to record this, though, is you don't want to be messing around with your camera during those 2 minutes and 39 seconds in Meadville and then miss it, right? And so what you might want to do is take your camera and record a video, but rather than record a video of the sun and the moon, point it at you and your family and friends, right? Because the oohs and ahs that you get from that, those are going to be the things that are going to be most memorable.
Everybody remembers.
That's right.
That. Yeah. Okay.
And Dwayne, I tell you, I've seen videos of grown adults crying when they see that corona next to it's really can be a remarkable and emotional thing. You feel a connection to the people around you. You feel a connection to the world around you. And so people get excited. I'm hoping that there's clear skies so that we can have that excitement.
I remember that the 25 years ago thing that I was talking to you about. It wasn't real distinct like this one's going to be. It wasn't, it was, just part. It was like a partial eclipse.
The difference. There's been several partial eclipses in the last 25 years, but the last annular eclipse was in 1994. And in an annular eclipse, it's almost a total eclipse. Everything's lined up just right. The issue is that in an annular eclipse, because the moon is slightly farther away from the Earth than it is on average, the moon's orbit is not perfectly circular.
So then you're going to have the sun all the way around.
You have the sun all the way around in a ring, right? Annular refers to the ring that you would see. And it does not become dark as night during an annular eclipse. And so if you're outside watching it, It's still going to be exciting, but it's not as dramatic as what's going to happen here on April 8th.
Okay, awesome. Well, Jamie, thanks very much for helping us
thanks
with
so
all
much,
this.
Dwayne.
This is a super thing coming up, and I appreciate having an expert here telling us all about it.
Yeah, it's very nice talking with you. Thanks for being here.
Very good.
Yeah.